How is our water being polluted? Agriculture uses chemicals to increase farming productivity.
Water would be nice.
Ironically, implemented to counter a diminishing water supply, these chemicals pollute the groundwater. Automobile gas emissions pollute the clouds, but perhaps the most damaging culprit is industry.
In the new regime, where water is being treated like oil, the protection of that commodity is being ensured through a militarized defense.
I think your water bill is high now. It may soon go even higher if you use Cincinnati water. But wait till you hear who they're blaming. You and me for using less water. You see, low-flow toilets and washing machines have reduced usage.
Have you ever thought about the true cost of that water flowing from your tap? It's not just about the number on the bill. There's a hidden price we're all paying, and it's higher than you might think. Corporations that buy up public water supply. They're not just taking control of our water, they're draining our wallets too. And worst of all, it's not hitting everyone equally. Let's talk about privatization for a moment. You might have heard that private companies can manage water more efficiently. But have you ever wondered why your water bill keeps going up? Here's a shocking fact. On average, people with privatized water systems pay nearly 60% more for water. In Pennsylvania, it's even worse. We're talking about an 84% increase. That's more than $300 extra per year just for the privilege of having a corporation control your water. Now you might be thinking, sure, that's bad, but at least I can afford it. But what about those who can't? This is where it gets really ugly. In Madagascar, some low-wage workers are spending 45% of their income on water. Let that sink in for a moment. Almost half of everything they earn just to have water to drink and bathe. And it's not just Madagascar. In India, a low-income person spends 17% of their household income on water. Think about that. 1 out of every $6 they earn gone on something that should be a basic human right. But here's where it gets really interesting. A resident from New Garden, Pennsylvania, was interviewed after seeing her water bill double. She ended up resorting to peeing in her backyard because she couldn't afford to flush her toilet. This isn't some far-off problem in a developing country. This is happening right here in America. You might be wondering, how is this legal? Well, it turns out that in many places, it is. Companies like Aqua Pennsylvania, a subsidiary of Essential Utilities, are prioritizing profit over water quality and customer satisfaction. And they're doing it with the blessing of our own governments. But it's not just about individual bills. The broader economic implications of water privatization are staggering. We're talking about increased financial burdens on entire communities. In some regions, privatized systems are so much more expensive that they're causing significant cost hikes for essential services. And here's something that might really make your blood boil. In Klamath, Oregon, privatization led to severe groundwater depletion. The result? Local communities were forced to rely on expensive external water sources like water tankers or bottled water. Imagine having to buy bottled water just to take a shower or flush your toilet. When you turn on your tap or buy a bottle of water, remember, you're not just paying for H2O, you're paying for corporate profits, for environmental degradation, and for a system that's leaving the poorest among us high and dry. The question is, how much are you willing to pay before we say enough is enough? Some people aren't just sitting back, they're rising up, and their stories might just change how you think about that water flowing from your tap. Have you ever heard of the Waterkeeper Alliance? It's not exactly a household name, but maybe it should be. This group is on the front lines of the fight for clean public water, and they're not alone. All around the world, people are waking up to the threat of water privatization, and they're not taking it lying down. Let's talk about McLeod, California. It's a small town, nestled in the shadow of Mount Shasta. Sounds serene and peaceful, right? Well, it was, until Nestle came knocking. The company wanted to build a massive water bottling facility there. Can you imagine the impact on a tiny town like McLeod? But here's where it gets interesting. The people of McLeod didn't just roll over. They formed groups like the McLeod Watershed Council to fight back. Deborah Anderson, the head of the council, put it this way. There is concern about traffic, air pollution, and what's going to happen to our water. They weren't just worried about today, they were thinking about the future. And boy, did they have reason to worry. Nestle was allowed to pump 1,600 acre-feet of water annually under a contract that paid the town only 8.7 cents for every 100,000 gallons of water. And guess what? Nestle could then sell that same water at $10.32 per gallon. Talk about a markup. And groundwater, they could take as much as they wanted. No limits. The people of McLeod fought back and they won. Well, sort of. The legal battle was long and messy. Nestle won some rounds, the community won others. But in the end, the fight itself was a victory. It shone a spotlight on the issue of water privatization, and it inspired others to take a stand. Right here in the United States, communities are fighting back. In Pennsylvania, groups like Keep Water Affordable are challenging laws that make it easier for corporations to buy up water systems. They're not just complaining, they're changing the rules of the game. Take Towamencin, Pennsylvania. When faced with the sale of their sewer system, they didn't just protest. They changed their town charter to block the sale. That's right. They rewrote the rules to protect their water. Here's something to think about. These fights aren't just about water, they're about power. They're about who gets to decide what happens to our most basic resources. And they're about the kind of future we want to live in. What will our future look like if we let these water barons keep calling the shots? It's not just about higher bills or corporate profits anymore. We're talking about a world where water isn't just a commodity, it's the most precious resource on Earth. Here's where it gets really interesting. What if I told you there are other ways to manage our water? Ways that don't involve handing control over to big corporations. It turns out there are. That's where technology comes in. Have you heard about what's happening in California? They're putting solar panels over aqueducts. It's not just about generating clean energy, it's about reducing water loss through evaporation. 2 birds, 1 stone. But here's the thing, technology alone isn't going to solve this problem. We need rules, laws that protect our right to water. Did you know that access to clean water is considered a human right by the United Nations? Yet in many places, that right is being trampled on by corporate interests. There are some who say water ought to be a right. It ought to be like air. Think about that for a second. We wouldn't let a company own the air we breathe, so why are we letting them control our water? Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great, but what can I do about it? Turns out, quite a lot. Organizations like the Waterkeeper Alliance are fighting to protect our water resources. They're taking on the big corporations, challenging laws that favor privatization, and working to ensure that water remains a public good. These groups can't do it alone. They need our support. Whether it's signing a petition, attending a town hall meeting, or simply being more mindful of your water use, every action counts. Remember that water isn't just H2O. It's the lifeblood of our communities, our ecosystems, and our future. The question is, are we going to let it slip through our fingers? Or are we going to take a stand and ensure that clean, affordable water remains a right for all, not a privilege for the few? Have you ever felt like you're just one person against a tidal wave of corporate interest? Well, you're not alone. Remember all those threats to our water we've talked about? The privatization, the pollution, the profiteering? Well, it turns out we're not powerless against them. In fact, You might be surprised at how much impact one person can have, but it's not just about individual action. It's about coming together as communities. And here's the thing, that tidal wave isn't as unstoppable as they want you to think. Every time you turn on your faucet, remember, that water didn't just appear by magic. There's a whole system behind it. And right now, that system is under attack. The question is, will we realize it before it's too late? Or will we wake up one day to find that our most basic necessity has been turned into someone else's profit machine?